Greetings. This is General CJG here, coming to you with, well, a podcast that we made in celebration of the 30th anniversary of Dark Empire. Because, yep, this comic came out in 1991, so, yep, we're pretty much doing this podcast and we're doing it a big favor, which is defending it against, well, every single EU hater that pretty much just hates it, as well as others that flat out just throw shit at it. So there is that. So with that, here are my co-hosts. Introduce yourselves, starting with.
This is a Spotify maniac.
Jedi Knight Luke here. It's time to bring the galaxy gun down on these fools.
And?
Jango Fett.
Yep. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, I guess first let's begin with our introduction to Dark Empire and how we were introduced to this comic series. So, who wants to go first on that one?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know about Dark Empire's existence until 2015, and surprisingly, I learned the existence of Dark Empire through Hello Greedo's top 5 worst things in the expanded universe. Which is a dumb video of his own, but that's another topic. But that was the first time I ever heard that Palpatine actually came back from the dead in another continuity. So I guess that was interesting. And I read it, and the story was pretty good. And not bad like Hello Greedo described. So there's that. Next.
Okay. Who goes next?
So, I first became aware of Dark Empire due to, of all things, an action figure review. Who here knows of the Legacy Collection comic 2-packs from way back in the 2000s?
Yep.
There's an action figure reviewer on YouTube who's quite well known in the Star Wars circuit called SithLord229, and he did a review of the comic 2-pack that had a Dark Empire Luke Skywalker and the Clone Emperor as action figures. And the comic it came in with was a Dark Empire 2 issue. That's how I came to hear about Dark Empire, but I didn't get hold of the comics until very recently. So having actually read the story, I have to say I really enjoy this.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. The Django?
So mine is pretty boring. Just like Tales of the Jedi, I discovered it through the library, and I think I read Dark Empire, was it 2 or 1? I don't remember which one it was. But from there, I was kind of like invested, and it has been actually years after that point that I actually never read Dark Empire 3, Empire's End. So it isn't until like a year or two ago that I actually read Dark Empire 3, but I still finished it. I could still say that.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, mine is, well, not so boring, because, well, I first heard of Dark Empire when, searching through YouTube and I guess Wikipedia, when I heard about Palpatine that he actually resurrected after Return of the Jedi. Now, I didn't know what to think of that, because I was just like reading on it, but I never experienced the full comic itself. So I just saw videos and heard of it, but didn't get much of an opinion until much later in 2016 or 17, somewhere over there. And I saw the Django's review of Crimson Empire, and I said, "Oh, in the comments. Oh, this comic looks interesting. I want to read it." And the Django said, "Yeah, definitely read it. Though I think you should first read Dark Empire." And so from there, I was like, "Okay, I'll read Dark Empire." And I read Dark Empire, and I enjoyed it. It was awesome. So, yep, that's how I pretty much got into Dark Empire. Thanks to the Django right here, years ago.
Glad to hear that.
Yep, so that's how I got into it. So yeah, and that's the end of my introduction to Dark Empire. So, I guess now we should get into the impact on the fandom that this comic series had. So, I think the first thing we should say is that, well, it was the first EU comic to come out after the Star Wars Marvel run back in the 90s. So there's that too.
Yeah, so if we're giving proper context, the only thing that was recently came out was the Thrawn trilogy, specifically the Heir to the Empire, which came out a couple of months ago. And before that, there were Ewoks and Droids television shows, which, let's just say, they were quote unquote interesting. And the Marvel comics ended with the issue 107. So there wasn't much going on other than Western games, and even those things' quality are questionable. But ever since the Thrawn trilogy, I think Dark Empire was a vast improvement compared to the material we got since Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, indeed. Definitely. So there is that. Now, there is one thing to mention in regards to the impact on the fandom with Dark Empire. And it is that back then, but especially more nowadays, it is divisive amongst the EU fandom. Like, it is pretty damn divisive. Some people like it, and some hate it. Like, hate it a lot. And I'm pretty sure you, Doan, and the Django have seen online how much people are just split on it.
Yeah, so this is what Disney Star Wars fanboys try to make strawman arguments about the EU, thinking every single EU fans love Dark Empire. That is not true. Dark Empire is one of the most controversial stories in the expanded universe.
It is. I mean, the Django, how much have you seen that comic series pretty much, well, get divisive in Star Wars groups? How much have you seen it?
Well, I think it's probably number one. There's quite a bit from the EU, but I think that really tops the list from what I've seen.
Yeah, like Dark Empire is one of the most divisive amongst EU fans. Not just Star Wars fans, like casual movie fans. No, even EU fans. Like there's some that like it and some that hate it. Even those that have read the books and some other comics or video games, they don't like it. So
Yeah, you'd think they would be more understanding to that story, but you'd be surprised to see how many EU fans actually hate it too.
And even the writers, because if you read some book like, what was it, The Vision of the Future, or one of Zahn's books, and he wrote something very stupid like, what was that? Oh, Mara Jade, the reason why Mara Jade wasn't in Dark Emperor is because she thought it wasn't the real Emperor. Like, what is that? Like, people honestly wrote that? Like, who approved this?
well, apparently Bantam must have approved of it, but yeah, Timothy Zahn, since day one, he has said he has not really liked Dark Empire, and yeah, even checking the interview with Tom Meich has said that yeah, Zahn, since day one, he has not really been fond of the comic at all. So there is that. Now, thankfully, there's Mysteries of the Sith to actually explain why Mara Jade was not in Dark Empire. So thank God for that. So.
And was it in Fate of the Jedi or Legacy of the Force? Where some character said, "This is the dumbest decision since you decided to become the Emperor's apprentice."
Oh yeah, that was in Legacy of the Force. Han Solo said it to
Like-
Luke.
Like, why do you people write this? Do you have any self-control?
I think even amongst the EU authors, some don't like Dark Empire, which, I mean, it is definitely a surprise. I mean, it's one thing to not like it, but it seems that that their distaste for it just really, like, they wanted to show it in the Star Wars writings, which, that's something.
Yeah, my problem is, like, their hate for the Dark Empire is, like, reflected in universe, which is very distracting if you read these things.
Yeah, it is definitely distracting. So, there is that. Now, there is another thing to discuss, and it's come recently in regards to the impact in the fandom, and it's because a certain Star Wars movie decided to bring Dark Empire to conversations again. You know which movie we're talking about. One of
The Rise of Skywalker.
Yep. That movie. And Doan, would you be so kind as to say to the audience why that movie brought Dark Empire to discussion?
Palpatine came back with a bunch of super weapons using clones. Well, they didn't say in the movie. They didn't say Palpatine resurrected himself using clones. Oh, that was a novelization, but they plot similar.
Yeah, to put it simply, Rise of Skywalker is a complete rip-off of Dark Empire, like blatantly. So, when you talk about Rise of Skywalker, you have to bring Dark Empire, and the same goes vice versa. Like, they're both intricately linked in the conversations. So, good job, J.J. Abrams, for that.
Yeah, and I still can't believe it has been more than a year since the conclusion of Disney trilogy. God.
Yeah, since 2020. But even to this day, there's people that still go after Dark Empire.
Yeah.
Though, on the positive side, there's plenty of people that go after Rise of Skywalker too. Even some Disney Star Wars fans go after that. So, I guess it's fair game now. So, there is that. Anyway, is there anything else to discuss regarding Dark Empire's impact on the fandom?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I guess now we get into the story or summary of it. Let's make it as simple as possible. So, okay, so the summary of the story goes like this. So the rebellion is stuck in the Galactic Empire's capital, or I guess Coruscant, basically the Imperial City, and well, they basically are stranded. And Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon and Leia and Chewie arrive to provide support. They manage to get there. They fend off the enemy forces, and then Luke Skywalker shows up and manages to not only destroy the enemy droids, but also the AT-AT with only his own lightsaber and force powers, which, yep, he did that. And then, some force snatches Luke away while Han and Leia pretty much escape. And, since then, Luke goes to the planet Biss, which is at the very deep core of the galaxy. So, and in there, he finds a familiar foe that was presumed dead. None other than Palpatine himself. Yep, he returned, and he has a plan to pretty much take down the New Republic once and for all. And he explained that he used Transfer Essence, a power where he transferred his conscience from his previous body to a new one, in particular clone bodies of himself, to pretty much cheating death. And from there, Luke wanted to kill Palpatine, but impossible because Palpatine had thought of every single angle. Hell, Palpatine even said that if he dies there, he might even take possession of Luke's body. So Luke had no choice, and he, surrendered to the dark side. As in basically he became Palpatine's apprentice, though in quotations. And then, from there, the New Republic is struggling against the Imperial Remnants world devastators that are striking the Mon Calamari planet. And the situation seems dire, but then out of nowhere, apparently the world devastators are getting destroyed from inside, which is interesting. And meanwhile, while that's going on, Han and Leia, they try to find a way to get to Biss to try to get Luke back and not have him be surrendered. Pretty much rescue him from the clutches of the Emperor. And they go to Nar Shaddaa and they tackle into a familiar bounty hunter from the original trilogy with Mandalorian armor. You guys know who it is. So they manage to loot him. They get to Biss. And once they get into Biss, they go face to face with Luke Skywalker, who, he definitely is, very intertwined in the dark side, which not good. And Han and Leia are taken prisoners, and Luke, he's subservient to Palpatine. And since then, Palpatine showcases a holocron to Leia, which she takes a look at it. We see a Jedi called Bodo Baas, pretty much telling her some advice. And Leia, she sees the holocron, sees what the holocron says, and then Palpatine wants to have Leia's child, who's inside her womb, to pretty much be completely subservient to Palpatine. And Leia's like, never! And she, pretty much just flees the place. And she finds Luke, and turns out that Luke all along has been, he's been the one that has been destroying the world devastators from inside by using self-destruct codes. And so and from there, he says his job is done. He escapes with Leia and Han, the Millennium Falcon. And they escape Biss, only that Luke didn't actually escape. He used a force projection technique, so he stayed behind in order to destroy the clones of Palpatine. And, he does that, but it was a bit too late because Palpatine did manage to get into the last clone body that was in the room. And they fight. Luke loses, and Palpatine, well, he makes a plan to take over the galaxy with his Eclipse Star Destroyer. But before he decides to, I guess, destroy any planets, he contacts the Rebellion and demands them to have Leia be surrendered to him. And so Leia accepts and goes to the Eclipse Star Destroyer. And, well, Palpatine tries to have Leia surrender to him and join him in the dark side. She refuses, so Palpatine tries to electrocute her, but not possible. And so Palpatine asks Luke, you are my apprentice. Kill her. And, well, they duel, but Leia manages to convince Luke to turn from the dark side, and he basically comes back to the light. And, well, Luke fights Palpatine. Palpatine is defeated, and he used a last-ditch effort by creating one of his huge Force Storms to destroy the Republic fleet. But Luke and Leia, using the Force together, they pretty much managed to direct the Force Storm and make it completely swallow the Eclipse Star Destroyer, destroying Palpatine and his Star Destroyer, and Luke and Leia managed to escape. They escaped, and from there, they pretty much determined to resurrect the Jedi Order. And, well, that's the summary of Dark Empire 1. Dark Empire 2, there's differences in the story, with Luke reviving the Jedi Order, as well as the New Republic facing against the remains of the Imperial Remnant, including Palpatine returning again. He's apparently had a spare clone body. Then in Empire Ascend, Palpatine's clone body is apparently deteriorating, so he tries to he gets desperate and tries to have his consciousness be transferred to Leia's recently born child, which is Anakin Solo. That failed, and Palpatine was put inside the body of one of the Jedi that was accompanying Luke and Patoya's brand, and, well, the Jedi pretty much self-destructed, and he Palpatine with him into the Netherworld. And so from there, Palpatine died for good. And yeah, that's the summary of Dark Empire. I summarize the first Dark Empire the most because that's the more important one for this podcast. So, yep, that's the summary. And from there, well, I guess we can go to the characters. So let's start with Luke Skywalker. So what do you guys got to say about Luke here?
What should we begin with? The dark side thing, or try to become Palpatine's apprentice? That seems to be the most controversial thing.
It's the number 2 controversial thing. So, put it simply, Luke Skywalker here, well, he's definitely gotten more experienced. He's definitely stronger than he was in Return of the Jedi. And contrary to what he did previously, in here, he tried to defeat Palpatine by pretty much turning to his side. And, well, yeah, he turned to the dark side. Became Palpatine's apprentice. But he didn't really turn to the dark side. Like, he didn't really, actually turn. You know, like, he didn't become a Sith, or he didn't use the dark side at all.
And the thing, if you read the entire comic, is it never actually kills anyone or harms anyone while he's dark side Luke. Did you ever see him do that? Because if you read the entire thing, Luke, what I basically describe is more like emo Luke instead of dark side Luke, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but he just stands there like looking like a freaking emo, and I'm resisting the dark side. So, yeah.
Well, he tried to conquer the dark side, but instead dark side was slowly conquering him, and he could have almost fell to the dark side had it not been for Leia at the end.
Yeah, and Luke doesn't just defeat Palpatine with 1 year training. Reminds you of something, does it?
There is that.
Even with all his training and his knowledge he got since Return of the Jedi, and, well, technically the Thrawn Trilogy, because this is chronologically after it, anyway.
Well, to be fair, the Thrawn Trilogy actually being before only helps to further explain Luke's power in this comic, actually, so it actually helps.
No, I'm saying sons.
I know chronological is before because Son wanted it, but at the end it actually ended up being more positive for the impact of the EU instead of negative.
So, with all his training and, training and knowledge he got since the Thrawn Trilogy, Luke still has a lot to learn. And I think the interesting aspect was that he tried to understand why his father fell to the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
To understand what kind of man Anakin Skywalker was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I found that aspect of Luke to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then to conquer it and then come back to the light side use it for good, which never turns out that way.
No, as far as I know, no other Jedi or Force sensitive has tried that. Well, they tried it, but didn't really work out.
Only Kildroma failed, Unland Boss failed, and Luke also fails.
Yeah. Though, at least Luke actually didn't fall to the dark side compared to the other three, which they did.
So my thing with Luke is that I get it from his perspective. It's like you have a foe that you didn't even face him. I mean, it was really Vader who helped in the end. But an all-encompassing powerful foe in the Emperor returning, and how are you supposed to deal with that? Like him returning, him being resurrected, him being this all-powerful figure right in front of you, and you're supposed to fight back against that? I mean, that seems like a tall task for anyone. So it's like in that moment, would you just give up and just give, just I don't know how to phrase this. Like you either join him and live, or you either just die right then and there and try to fight back in this hopeless fight in the end. So it's a tough choice for him. So I get it from his perspective, and I just don't like the idea of him just like, oh, he should just fight back no matter what, and then possibly die or something, which seems kind of stupid to me. Like at least he's trying to do something, and then we see Leia come in and actually do something like really awesome and become this really powerful female figure and save Luke in the end. I think that's just an awesome take.
Yeah, indeed. Definitely. And it's also great seeing Luke pretty much resurrecting the Jedi Order by the time of Dark Empire too, and even Empire Ascent. So he's definitely have been growing, getting more experience, and definitely doing what he, well, was meant to do, resurrect the Jedi Order. He's always meant to do that since Return of the Jedi. You know, pass on what you have learned, as Yoda said. So there is that indeed. So yeah. Anything else to mention on Luke Skywalker?
I was very surprised actually. How long after Return of the Jedi does this take place?
About 9 years.
After Return of the Jedi, it's actually 6 years.
Oh yeah, because Toronto is 5 years later, and this is an additional year.
Yeah, it's
Don't you guys, I'm not at all trying to say that Luke is a Mary Sue here, but don't you guys find it interesting that he has made it to self-proclaimed Jedi Master status only a matter of years after, like, it hasn't even been a decade yet, and he's already achieved Jedi Master levels of power?
I mean,
Well, we have worse cases.
well, to be fair, Luke, he is the son of the Chosen One, so he was going to be adept in the Force by default and be really strong. So there is that. Not to mention, we've seen what he has done in the Thrawn trilogy, as well as some other sources, like the Courtship of Princess Leia and some others. So he has done plenty of trials and tribulations in order to become as powerful as he is in Dark Empire. So we do see his growth in his power and his character. So it's not completely in behind the scenes as, you know, certain other Star Wars sources tried to do years ago, in 2017. So there is that. So yeah.
It is interesting, as has been pointed out already, with seeing Luke try to destroy the enemy from within in taking his place, quote unquote, as Palpatine's apprentice. But it also shows, obviously, the sheer power of the dark side. No one is truly immune to resisting the temptation.
Yeah.
Even if you go into disguising yourself as a Darksider, essentially, and that is your conscious goal, there's always that chance it's going to overwhelm you, which, as has already been pointed out, is what's happened many times in the past, and what nearly happens to Luke here as well. So it's nice to know that he's not a complete Gary Stu when it comes to being perfect with resistance.
There's that, yeah. Okay, so anything else to mention on Luke?
No.
Okay, so now we get to, well, Palpatine. Well, what do we gotta say about him? If you ask me, I think this comic, keep in mind, this is before the prequel, so we actually didn't see a lot of Palpatine other than Return of the Jedi. So seeing how Palpatine is here in the comic and comparing to what came after is pretty remarkable because he literally is fully in character. Like, I didn't think for a second that the Palpatine that I was seeing in this comic broke character or was somebody completely different. Like, he literally felt like it was indeed Palpatine himself. It truly felt like it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, he's just in the beginning. You see him in his old form, and that doesn't change. And he does change as he goes through clone bodies, but it's still the same, very same Emperor that we know. And it just seems like he's just even more powerful than ever. And he's stuck in this repetition where it's just constantly like his bodies, like bodies that he has, they're just constantly being drained away so quickly that he just constantly has to switch and switch and switch. But it just shows how powerful he was, and this was like the only way for him to survive, especially a dark side user. Like this is like the only way you can actually survive in that universe. But yeah, I mean, I think he's just great overall.
I mean, I found it really amusing how consistent it was with Revenge of the Sith. There's a scene in Revenge of the Sith where most people know Palpatine saying the dark side is a path to many abilities, some considered to be unnatural. Resurrecting yourself using clone bodies is very unnatural. What do you guys think about that?
Certainly.
You can't be more natural than that.
It certainly is, yeah. Something else I found interesting about Palpatine is that in here, well, it is definitely the same Palpatine. Like, as far as I know, before Dark Empire, we never really saw him in his younger self. Like, not really. The prequels, we did see him before becoming the old ragged Darth Sidious, but you could still argue that he was still a bit on the older side. Like, we never actually saw him in his either teenage or young adult years, whereas the clones we see here in Dark Empire, they're definitely in the young adult forms.
Now, in case someone gets confused or misinterprets certain things, in the Dark Empire comics, it kind of makes it look like Palpatine has been living for years, really for a very, very long time, using clones to constantly resurrect himself. Leland Chi confirmed that Palpatine was just lying, so don't take that too seriously.
Yeah, Palpatine's first true death was Return of the Jedi. So,
And yeah, Palpatine lived a quote-unquote normal life, from a young man to a old raggedy ass man. So yeah, don't get confused.
yeah, definitely. So, if you want more info on his backstory, you have to read Dark Plagueis for that. So, there's that. So, yeah. Anything else to mention on Palpatine's character?
Well, the fact that he wanted more power and couldn't accept the death is very consistent with the depiction in prequels and the original trilogy. That's what I would say.
Yeah, indeed. So, are there any other characters you guys want to discuss quickly before we get to the criticisms?
Leia, perhaps?
What do you got to say about her?
It's great that, unlike in the Disney Star Wars continuity, in the old EU, we see that Leia's very latent force sensitivity actually begins to flourish here. We see her in, is it issue 4 of the first story? Put a lightsaber to use.
You could say that, yeah. The lightsaber that she got from Bima, yeah.
And she does have a relatively rudimentary understanding of the Force now. Again, compared to Disney Star Wars, where actually that's not true. In Disney Star Wars, she did train with Luke, but it was only up to a point, and then she never bothered delving into the ways of the Force again.
And even then, it was a horrible retcon from Rise of Skywalker. In reality, she originally had no training.
And don't forget Leia Poppins.
Oh, that.
Oh god.
So, which we'll get to later, by the way. because there is something we have to mention about that. So there's that. Also, it's also great seeing Leia definitely doing more Jedi related stuff instead of political stuff, because Tron trilogy related and several other sources before the Jedi Order, she mostly did more on the political stuff. We never really actually saw her fully as a Jedi. Dark Empire was definitely one of the first where we definitely saw her do some more Jedi related stuff, and then New Jedi Order and the Legacy of the Force and Darkness trilogy. So definitely was great. Han, well, it's same old Han. We do get some characters that are from his past, but we don't really see much change from him, honestly. So, same goes with Chewie and Lando.
And let's see. I found the part where Boba Fett said, "That's all about me. Somewhat undigestible solo."
We'll get into that, though, and don't worry, we'll get to that.
That was cool.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. So, yeah. Other than Luke, Palpatine, and Leia, I really don't think there's much more we can say about other characters. So, and even then, we're gonna have to save some for when we properly tackle each volume of Dark Empire by itself. So, there's that. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the criticisms of the Star Wars fandom. Yes, the ones that people throw at Dark Empire. Let's start with one of the absolute biggest ones. The Emperor coming back from the dead post Return of the Jedi is a very stupid and goofy idea and shouldn't even exist in Star Wars. Okay.
Was that a problem, considering what happened in Rise of Skywalker? Did people complain about that too, as much?
Yeah, there are those that hate both Dark Empire and Rise of Skywalker for doing that same thing. But there are those that actually say Rise of Skywalker did it better than Dark Empire, like 8080 Chad and Jacob's Quest, for example.
Quick question.
As well.
How can you say TROS did it better when, unlike here, we didn't even get a thorough explanation as to how he survived?
Easy, Disney Star Wars fanboys. Or shields.
Not the most intelligent type of people we're dealing with.
Yep. Indeed. So yeah, they say it's a stupid and goofy idea that shouldn't even be a thing in Star Wars. Which I find interesting that they say stupid, because, I mean, seriously, transfer essence, that's not really something out of the realm possibility for Star Wars. Like, what do you gotta say, Dowan?
The fact that a dark side user wants to live on forever and constantly have more and more power is consistent in every character, beginning from Dark Bane, Plagueis, and even Dark Krayt, which that's a different story. But all these dark Jedis, one thing is common: want more power and do not want to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, also, too, it's like, that's the only way to go down that path, to transfer your essence like that, and to have the resources to get the clones and stuff, and to learn that technique. Like, he was, like, really the only Sith in record to actually do that. And if you look at in the past with Exar Kun, for instance, he sacrificed thousands of Masasi in order for his spirit to live. Not for him to live, just his spirit. Just so he can possibly run into someone and just take over that body or something, which is like a 1 in a million chance, and obviously that failed for him.
The other example I know is Bishop, because the dude managed to transfer his essence to multiple bodies.
Yeah, but clones of himself, yeah, that definitely did not happen.
I guess the technology wasn't available at the
Yeah, you could say that. There is that. Now, transfer essence itself has been used before, chronologically in Star Wars. You already mentioned Exar Kun, the Django, and you mentioned Vitiate, the one. But let's also not forget Darth and Dedu, you know, the one that which his holocron does allow transfer essence. And Darth Vader at one point had found that holocron and knew about that ability. You guys remember? And then Dedu had lived for many years by using that same ability.
Well, it's just that there's a slight thing where in Dark Plagueis novel where Plagueis says like he didn't want to be a lingering presence who could only control people who have the weakest mind, nor want to put his conscience into a clone body. Yeah, I see what you've done there.
There's that, yeah. It's interesting that Well, these people say that it's a stupid idea, but given what we know about many sources of Star Wars, in particular Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine doing this is not out of the realm possibility, nor does it break character, and it stays very true to his own character. Like, he definitely would try to cheat death, and he definitely would do it in a way that, for Star Wars standards, it makes sense. And transferring the soul from body to body is something that can definitely happen. And the Force certainly strong enough to do that. And I know there's going to be those that say that, oh, the Force is probably just, lifting rocks and something. It shouldn't do something that insane like, transfer essence. Well, to those guys, well... Django, Dowan, look, do you guys remember a specific quote from episode 4 when it came to how strong the Force is? Do you guys remember it?
I think it says like the force is everything, every energy surrounding basically everything.
Yeah, there is that, but there's this one quote said by Darth Vader that said,
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
I know most people definitely, they don't pay attention to that quote because they only pay attention to Vader choking Admiral Marty. So, yeah, there is that. But also another thing, in regards to souls, in episode 5, we got from Yoda that he said,
For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
So we pretty much had established that, yes, every single living being is actually a luminous being. And Palpatine, well, he used that knowledge to use the Force to be able to transfer that luminous being into another crude matter. Living crude matter.
I mean, here's the thing. Think about it. There's Force ghosts, right?
Yes.
If there's Force ghosts, that means there could be also Force possession. I mean, what makes you think that, like, a ghost could inhabit another body?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that simple?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I don't know why so many people literally say that Palpatine coming back from the dead is so stupid and a goofy idea it shouldn't exist Star Wars. I know Hello Greedo certainly hates this because he claims that it is a stupid and a goofy idea. Ugh. Which, fun fact, once Rise of Skywalker came out, Hello Greedo, he didn't really shit it on that movie so much he did with Dark Empire. So, there's that for you. Now, there is one thing in regards to the Emperor coming back from the dead being a stupid idea, and this is the counter-argument that many you haters say. And it is that George Lucas hated the idea of Palpatine returning from the dead post-Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Sure.
Tom Bice himself said that George Lucas either suggested the idea or allowed Tom Bice to use the idea of resurrecting. It isn't very clear whether George Lucas came up with the idea or said it, but
well-
it is clear at the end that George Lucas was the one who basically said, hey, you can do this.
Well, actually, I got here the actual quote from the interview with Tom Beich. So, when Tom Beich got asked, how did you come up with the idea of bringing back the Emperor? Tom said that our original proposal was to bring back Darth Vader's costume and mask, with somebody else inside it. We felt the Empire would want to maintain the fearsome image of Vader and wouldn't much care who was wearing the armor and breathing mask. George vetoed that idea, although he did allow us to have Vader appear in Dreams and Memories. He said no, you can't bring back the Vader costume, but if you can figure out how to bring back the Emperor, that's okay. The obvious way to bring back the Emperor was with cloning, which George immediately approved. There it is, from the interview. George Lucas specifically approved Palpatine returning from the dead in Dark Empire. There you go.
People are just making stuff up.
They are.
What
They,
George Lucas wanted.
they use stuff like the Starlock quote as a means of trying to argue George Lucas's hatred for Dark Empire. But not only is that quote taken so out of context, but also here's Tom Beich has said several times in this interview, at one point in Facebook, I believe, where, yeah, it was George said no to the Darth Vader idea, but he suggested that if the Emperor could return, then that's okay. So, yep. So, there is that. So, anything else to say on this?
No.
Okay, next. Continuing with the Emperor's resurrection, the Emperor has multiple young clones of himself. How does he not have them running around controlling the Empire and ruling the galaxy?
Here's a simple answer. Palpatine does not want to share his power with anyone else. Think, idiots!
Also, given the means by which those clones are inhabited, essence transfer, Palpatine's spirit has to be inside those clone bodies in order for them to be active.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he can only do it like one at a time. It's not like he can do it all at once and then, control the entire galaxy from there. No, it takes a lot of power just to do it just on one body alone.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. God damn it. Snoke is a pale Palpatine clone and he exactly does that, so...
Well, there's that. How would it work for Palpatine transferring like his sense to multiple clones? Would he like do something like Voldemort in Harry Potter or what? Like, how would that work?
Burn his soul?
I don't know. Luke, do you got an idea on how that would happen?
Just a quick thing with the Horcruxes. The way one makes a Horcrux in the Harry Potter universe is to commit an act of murder. And that's what splits the soul in that universe. But in Star Wars... Well, if we go by that logic, similar to Voldemort, Palpatine would have killed so many people that his soul probably wouldn't even be fractions. It would probably be fragments with how many people he's killed. But, yeah, I don't see how that could work.
Yeah, me neither. Not to mention, if his soul is split into fragments, I don't think any of the clones would be as powerful as what he used to be in just one body with one soul.
Fragments of a soul, or a spirit in this case, I should say, probably wouldn't even be enough to awake any of those clones.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, would Palpatine want to see other versions of him all running around sharing equal power?
No.
Even if it was himself?
No.
Like, why would anyone do that? Or Palpatine, of all people, try to separate himself and multiple versions of him sharing power? Why would Palpatine even share power with anyone to begin with?
No.
People are just stupid.
Yeah, so he wouldn't do that. So there is that. So yeah, anything else to mention on this one?
I can't think of anything.
Okay, well, next. This one is for Luke Skywalker. Luke turning to the dark side and becoming Palpatine's apprentice is not only rushed, but it also ruins his character arc from the original trilogy. Luke was already tempted by the dark side in Return of the Jedi, and he overcame it. So why is he turning now to the dark side?
Like, I have to reiterate this again. You're facing a reborn emperor who has become more powerful than ever before and has an incredible force behind his back. How do you stop that? You can't just like it comes out of nowhere and just destroys the entire galaxy almost again in an instance, and you're expected to just fight it and expect to lose initially. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
And a quick thing, Luke's struggle with the dark side was very, very different in Return of the Jedi. The temptation that Luke struggled with from the dark side in Episode 6 was whether or not he was willing to kill his father. This time around, though, he is literally being seduced by the big man himself, that being the Emperor. When they're face to face and Luke is attempting to use the dark side to achieve good, which never works. So this is a much deadlier struggle, if you really think about it, than what Luke dealt with in Episode 6.
Not to mention, let's also not forget that, as we said before, nowhere in Dark Empire did Luke truly turn to the dark side. He never sacrificed anything to turn to the dark side. So his turn to the dark side was really fake, if you ask me. Because think about it. Okay, Anakin Skywalker, what did he lose to turn to the dark side?
Everything.
Well, his wife, his friendship with Obi-Wan, his arms, legs, eyebrows, and maybe his balls. But I don't know about it.
Well,
And of course he lost his unborn children. for many years. So
He lost everything. So, yep. Now, what about, say, Count Dooku? What did he lose?
Let's count it. Yeah, I don't know what count.
I got
Maybe
one
it's-
Sifo Dyas. Because you remember, the very final trial to turn to the dark side is to commit an act of murder, in a sense, in which basically you have to kill somebody that's close to you. With Anakin Skywalker, well, it pretty much was, besides a good chunk of the Jedi Order, and obviously the Separatist stuff, and almost kill his wife. In the case of Count Dooku, it was Sifo Dyas. So, yep.
wasn't the final straw that caused Dooku's turn the death of Qui-Gon?
He did not turn to the dark side at that point. He definitely left the Jedi Order, but he was not like a Sith apprentice or the next Sith Lord. No, when he truly became Sith Lord was when he killed Sifo Dyas. So that's when he was crowned Darth Tyrannus. So,
Right.
His path towards that was like started with Galadron. I think it was Battle of Galadron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where Jango Fett and Mandalorians were killed by a bunch of Jedi under false orders from the Republic and the Galadron government, was it?
It was the Galadron government with the Death Watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, Jango Fett survived that one, of course. So yeah, Darth Tyrannus. Now Darth Kaidos, aka Jason Solo, well, he killed Mara Jade. So that was his final test to become Darth Kaidos, aka Jason Solo killing Mara Jade. So there's that too. And there's other examples of other Sith Lords. Darth Bane, as far as I know, I believe when he killed his father, even if it could have been indirectly, but he killed him. So there's that. So yeah, every single person that falls to the dark side, especially to become the next Sith Lord or Sith apprentice, pretty much has to commit that final test. And basically to relinquish him for good, whatever you hold the most dearest, a loved one or a person close to you. And Luke, he didn't do that. He came close by killing Leia at the end, but didn't happen. So his turn to the dark side was fake. Didn't happen. Now, there's also one thing to mention, that some people wonder, like, why didn't Palpatine make Luke prove his allegiance to him when he became his apprentice?
Yeah, I got an answer for that. Because Palpatine already knew Luke was full of shit from the beginning.
Yeah,
He didn't test him because he already know Luke was planning to infiltrate from the inside. And was watching, this young fool think he could fool me. What an idiot. That's what Palpatine's thinking.
Yeah. Palpatine definitely is not easy to trick. So,
Also, whether this can be counted as a reason per se, I'm not entirely sure, but he wanted to give Luke the opportunity that Luke initially outright refused in Return of the Jedi. He was still set on having some kind of successor.
there's that. But obviously, he had a backup plan in case Luke, was secretly betraying him.
Which, of course, Luke ultimately did, so...
Yep, indeed. So yeah, Luke's turn to the dark side. It's fake. It's not rushed, as some would claim. And so there's plenty of reasons why it happened. So yeah, anything else to mention on this one?
No.
Okay, next. Oh, this one is one of your favorites. The one, super weapons galore. Yes.
Just look at Rise of Skywalker and see those 1,000 freaking Death Star lasers. At least the EU had original super weapons.
There is that, yeah. The main criticisms that EU haters level at the EU having so many super weapons, other than having many of them, is that many of them were created in such a short lifespan between Return of the Jedi and Dark Empire. Stuff like the World Devastator, Eclipse Star Destroyers, and Galaxy Gun. They argue that they should not have taken so short amount of time to create them. Like, it is kind of unrealistic.
I would think the World Devastator is not too far off because some person, this is more like mentioning Knights of the Old Republic, might have read historical events of the Star Forge, and they might try to replicate that.
Yeah, you could say that. Another explanation for this is Palpatine could have just ordered for all these super weapons to having been created for years before the events of Dark Empire. Considering how Palpatine would like to have more than just a Death Star, it would make sense that he'd have several super weapons either already created or in production. Which is why stuff like the Sun Crusher and all the super weapons in Dark Empire are pretty much possible to exist, because it's years, probably been in years of being created since Palpatine was crowned the Emperor of the Galaxy. So, like, pretty much just create whatever super weapon he wants, because he's the Emperor. So
He has the
Yeah,
money
no.
to do it.
and the,
Yeah, and when it comes to warfare, you don't want to use the same old weapons and ships that you've used in the past that your enemies are familiar with, like Star Destroyers. So why not bring something new to the table and see if your opponent can outwit that? Especially with like the World Devastators and Super Star Destroyers. I mean, like these are more, out there stuff out there, and just like they have to counter that, and it'll take some time just to do that.
Not to mention, if they had used the same Death Star over and over, their enemies would have already known the weak spot, because they've already destroyed the Death Star before. So, yeah, they have to pretty much get creative with their super weapons. And not to mention, another thing, what if threats outside the galaxy show up later on in the Star Wars timeline? Don't you think the Empire want to be prepared for it? Yushon Bong.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, there's plenty of reasons Palpatine have the super weapons ready. Now, for those EU haters that still think this is unrealistic, well, how would you explain the 1,000 Star Destroyers in Episode 9? Yeah, I'd like to see you explain that one, or Starkiller Base in Episode 7, or the other super weapons in Disney Star Wars. Like, if you hate the super weapons in the EU, hate the super weapons in Disney Star Wars, because even in there, the Empire also has a fetish for making super weapons. So,
Yay, at least the EU has original weapons.
and good explanations for how they were made. So, there's that too. So, yeah, anything else to mention on super weapons?
No, let's move on.
Okay, next. You want to tackle this one, no one? Boba Fett survives his fall in the Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi. He should have stayed dead, because Fett surviving is nothing but fan service and makes no sense that he survived.
If you want to return to Jedi carefully, it says something like, inside the Sarlacc, your experience was C-3PO saying, for 1,000 years?
He basically said that you will experience a new definition of suffering and be slowly digested for 1,000 years.
Yeah, so how the Sarlacc basically works is it, for some reason, keeps its victim for 1,000 years, thousands of years. So Boba Fett, even if all of the original trilogy cast might have died, Boba Fett would still been alive, even if he didn't escape.
Let's also
Or maybe he might go crazy, but he will be still alive.
There's also another thing to consider. Even if the prey inside the Sarlacc probably dies and just left the corpse for the Sarlacc to digest, thing is, Boba Fett wouldn't just die in like right there when he's eaten by the Sarlacc. It will still take a while, maybe a few years at most. So he will still have plenty of time to find a way to escape. And given that that Boba Fett has his Mandalorian armor, his jetpack, and several other equipment that he has, he could find a way to escape the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
So it is not out of the realm possibility for Boba Fett to be the only survivor of the Sarlacc pit. So there's that. And also, thanks to several EU sources, we know how he survived the Sarlacc pit in the EU. In Disney Star Wars, The Mandalorian Season 2 only shows Fett without his armor, but does it really explain how he survived?
And that's kind of in Aftermath trilogy. It mentions about a Mandalorian armor in a very acidic state, and they don't. Which I'm assuming that Boba Fett escaped, but somehow got separated from his armor. Okay, how?
No,
But yeah,
there's no details on how Boba Fett escaped in Disney Star Wars. In the EU, we got plenty of details, but in Disney Star Wars, we don't. So, if you ask me, Boba Fett's survival from the Sarlacc pit in Disney Star Wars is worse than in the EU. So, because in the Star Wars, we get no explanation. So
Yeah, and like the people who are complaining about, the point about Boba Fett still like he should stay dead are the same hypocrites who are cheering for Boba Fett when he appeared in the Mandalorian, like in like one of the last episodes in season 2,
Oh yeah.
and his grand entrance. They're the same fucking idiots who are just like, yes, Boba Fett is back.
And these people seem to hate characters coming back from the dead, but do you know how many people clapped when Darth Maul came back, or how Echo returned in TCW Season 7?
Yeah. There's that indeed. Now, in regards to what Hello Greedo thought about Boba Fett surviving the Sarlacc, well, he did still think that, well, it was a goofy idea, but he never brought the same argument he did when Dark Empire and the EU resurrected Boba Fett. And the reason was that for him, Fett surviving was nothing but fan service. He did not bring that same argument when Fett came back in The Mandalorian. He didn't mention it.
That was fan service.
Yep,
Literally fan service.
it is.
Can I just say something about this really quick?
What is it?
If Boba Fett surviving is being, or is it regarded by both EU fans and Disney fans alike as fan service?
Well,
Or is it just the Disney fans who think that?
it seems more Disney Star Wars fans.
Okay, so in that case, I direct to just the more Disney-oriented crowd. You tend to regard Boba's return in this comic story as just fan service, Disney Star Wars fans. You do realize you could say the exact same thing about the Emperor coming back, but I've certainly not heard anyone say that about his return. So why is Boba Fett getting all the slack in that regard?
Technically, this wasn't Boba Fett's first escape from the Sarlacc.
Well, there's that of the Marvel comics in the EU, but the idea in general about Boba Fett surviving the Sarlacc pit is something that pretty much Disney Star Wars fans and EU haters just hate. Like the mere idea of it. Like they just hate it. They think I should have just stayed in the Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi and onwards. That's what they think.
These people are one of the most boring peoples out there. They think the mere fact that you do something outside of the film, featuring Boba Fett taking major part in some story, ruins him because of mystery. No, shut up. Hey, you can have opinions, but if you say something stupid, you're gonna get called out for it, okay?
There's that, yeah. Anyway, so anything else to mention on this one? Okay.
Well, I thought the idea of Boba Fett having this friendship with Dengar was kind of odd, especially since Dengar wasn't really a character in the movie. Appeared like a few seconds.
Yeah, we had to wait until the Bounty Wars, and I guess the Tales of the Bounty Hunters to further flesh out more that relationship. So there is that. Anyway, so next, okay, this is another one that you haters hate. That Obi-Wan and Yoda apparently were the only surviving Jedi post Episode 3, but this comic has several other Jedi who survived the Jedi Purge, aka Order 66. So apparently people...
Do we have to really do this?
Go ahead, that one.
Okay, so many of the Jedi post Order 66 cut themselves off from the Force or lower their Force level, if there's such a thing, to the point that it was undetectable to Inquisitors or the Emperor's hands. So that's why they were not detected easily, because it would be stupid to go against the Empire and be a Jedi. I mean, how are you gonna... The Jedi is powerful, but how are you gonna fight against 100 millions of stormtroopers and Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters trying to chase after you? You might as well just hide, which seems like a smarter idea.
Also, apparently all Jedi are supposed to be idiots and supposed to die by the Order 66, and only Obi-Wan and Yoda are the only good ones. Everybody else are, not very smart.
And it's interesting seeing these people hate that about the EU when Disney Star Wars did the exact same thing. There's Jedi that survived Order 66. Ahsoka!
Kanan.
Yep, him too.
Who's another one?
The one from Jedi Fallen Order.
Cal Kestis.
That's already been said. Oh, Sir Junda as well, who is again Fallen Order.
Yeah, it's not too impossible to say that Obi-Wan and Yoda didn't know about the other Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those two guys were busy escaping from Coruscant. Would they have any time to care about the others?
Not to mention, Obi-Wan was tasked to protect Luke Skywalker for the 19 years he was growing up, and Yoda, well, he pretty much exiled himself completely to Dagobah. So, yeah, by that point, they pretty much didn't know what the hell was going on outside of the galaxy. Obi-Wan a little bit, but through newscasts and HoloNet news reports in the Tatooine's cantinas, but that's it. So, Yoda, he didn't know what the hell was going on. Unless the Force told him, but that's about it. So, yeah, they wouldn't know there were other Jedi that survived Order 66. So, there's that indeed. Anyway, anything else to mention on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, next. A similar argument to that the EU haters use to that one is that Luke was the only fully fledged Jedi to be alive post Episode 6, according to Yoda. You know, when Yoda said that, Luke, when I'm gone, you'll be the last of the Jedi. So apparently people hate that. Apparently there were already fully fledged Jedi alive post
Yeah.
Episode 6.
That's what Yoda thought,
Mm-hmm.
not the actual. Yoda wouldn't know if other Jedi were alive.
Mm-hmm. He wouldn't know. Because he was stuck in Dagobah.
Yeah. Come on, people, use your brains.
Yep. And if we go with that same line, then that means that, well, I mean, Ahsoka was also fully fledged Jedi, and she even became stronger after Rebels. So, I mean, and Yoda didn't know about her. So, yeah, and she survived all the way up until post Return of the Jedi, you know, with the Mandalorian. So, there you go. There was another fully fledged Jedi. So,
Yeah.
yep. So there you go. Here's another short one, and one that I just don't even understand why it exists, but here it is. Empatoyaos' brand's design is stupid simply because he's a floating head and a torso.
There's a freaking rock Jedi in the High Republic. Shut the hell up.
But
Just
yeah.
a Geordie. It's a freaking rock. It's a freaking sentient rock Jedi. I can't even believe I'm saying this.
Well, there you go. I mean, this is the same people that, well, they've said all of this other shit that we tackle. But yeah, there's people that really hate Empatoyaos' brand's design. So there you go. Yeah.
We have seen worse.
Well, let's get to another one that gets criticized a lot, not just for Dark Empire, but the entirety of the EU. There is a lot of overpowered force powers, like Palpatine's Force Storms, Transfer Essence, Luke destroying the AT-AT with the Force, etc. Some even say that these powers are so unrealistic for them to happen in the Star Wars universe. Do I have to show this clip from Episode 4 again? Darth Vader, take it away.
The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
Cut. So,
Yeah.
there's that. And anything else you guys want to mention on this one?
Just as a quick thing, you do realize, Dark Empire haters, we are talking about master level Force users who have years of training under their belts pulling off these feats, not someone who has only been a Jedi for 12 months.
Rey.
Rey Skywalker!
Granted, nothing that Rey does in the sequels is quite as dramatic as what we see here, but the point is, she was a Jedi for only a year in Disney Star Wars before she attained the level of power that she did in The Rise of Skywalker. Meanwhile, here in the EU, Luke is a Jedi Master at this point, who only has a handful of years of training under his belt, and Sidious has decades of training under his, but both of them aren't 100% perfect.
There's that. May I also mention that there is actually one overpowered feat that Rey did do, which actually makes her the most powerful ever, and it is single-handedly killing Palpatine, which not even Luke Skywalker could fucking do. So, Yeah, Starkiller tried. He failed. Luke, well, he considered it here in Dark Empire. He couldn't do it. He needed help from Leia to do it. Rey, single-handedly, by herself, with just 2 lightsabers, managed to take down the same guy that minutes before, in that same movie, did the biggest forced lightning storm ever and nearly took down the entire Resistance fleet with it.
Hey, she got 2 lightsabers. I guess that helped.
So, you're telling me that, EU haters, that you hate the Force Storms that Palpatine does in the Dark Empire, but the Force Lightning Storm in Rise of Skywalker, oh, that's fine. There's no problems there. Like,
As we have established previously, logical consistency is non-existent from the minds of Disney Star Wars fans.
yeah, indeed. So, yep. And also, may we also mention that in the EU there's several sources that literally say that the Force can do all sorts of tremendous stuff. There's also the moment in New Jedi Order where Luke Skywalker, Grand Master Luke Skywalker, by the way, more powerful than here, managed to use the Force to condense a black hole with his own hands to pretty much make it swallow an entire Yuuzhan Vong vehicle. So managed to do that, but that tired the hell out of him. So the Force takes its toll on even the most powerful Force users here. And here in Dark Empire, while we don't see something similar to that, other than I guess the closest being Luke destroying the AT-AT with the Force or Palpatine's Force Storms. So the Force, while it is extremely powerful, it still kind of has its limits. Whereas in Disney Star Wars Rey, there's no limits for her. So yeah, there's that. Anything else to mention on this one, guys?
No.
Maybe you could turn the insignificant next to Power Force clip again.
Yep, okay, so here it is again.
The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
And I'll do an extra one. I'll even put the episode 5 one from Yoda here. Here you go.
For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is.
So, yep. There you go. Anyway, now we go to the next one. This is a very subjective one, but there's plenty of people that just bitch about this one. The art style is criticized as having the colors being dull, muted, somewhat puke/crappy looking colors, which makes it not look like Star Wars. The comic would have looked better if it was in black and white, or if the colors looked like other Star Wars comics.
I'm just going to say this right now. In black and white, this comic, or these comics, I should say, would not have worked.
And yeah, CJ, going off that, yeah, I couldn't disagree more with what they said. I mean, hence the title Dark Empire. The coloring done by Cam Kennedy, who also did the artwork as well, is just so unique and different, and it feels like, hence the title, dark. Like there is like a foreboding threat with the Empire, and it really fits the aesthetic of what it's going through. And I just love the difference in colors, like green, blue, yellow, red, and I love all the color palettes of this. It just seems like just a unique and different style. And you do see that in some other Boba Fett stories as well. And, you know, Cam Kennedy does just a great job overall. I just think it's very subjective, but I love this artwork. It really fits.
Mm-hmm. I think Cam Kennedy's best is definitely Dark Empire. He did do a good job with the Boba Fett comics, though. As you and I tackled before the Django with those comics, there were a few where the art style didn't really fit. It was in those where the tone was lighthearted in nature. But for the most part, it seemed to work. Here in Dark Empire, this art style is where it shines the best. This art style from Cam Kennedy works the best in Dark Empire. And I don't think any other story has topped it, to be honest. I think it is his best.
Yeah, and I will say, too, that the artwork in Empire's End, which is the third one, is done by a different artist, Jim Bakey. And Bakley, and it's pretty bad, and the coloring doesn't fit at all. Like it just really bad.
Yeah.
And the story overall, I wasn't really a fan of Empire's End, I must say, but the first two are just fantastic.
Yeah, though most people hate the art style of the first and second volume, aka Camp Kennedy, which
Yeah.
it's not a bad art style. It may not be your cup of tea, but saying that it's objectively bad, no way. You can definitely have an argument for Empire's End because it tries to be a mishmash of Camp Kennedy's art style with regular colors of Star Wars comics. So you can have an argument with Empire's End, but with Dark Empire 1 and Dark Empire 2, no, the art style is pretty great. So, yeah. So, and not to mention, if you want to talk about bad art styles for Star Wars, I mean, there's plenty of examples we can think of, like...
GCW webcomics,
God.
those things are horrible.
Yeah. Oh, and let's also mention the Smuggler's Code comic from TCW. Oh, God. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with how they drew Anakin and Obi-Wan. Luke knows which one I'm talking about. He's seen it.
Ugh, that was
And
cringe-inducing.
issue 107 of Marvel Comics is horrible. You can actually look at that.
You could say that, yeah. Which one? 107?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, there's plenty of examples of bad artwork in Star Wars comics, but Dark Empire, no, it's not one of them. So, yeah. So, anyway, anything else to mention on this one?
No.
Okay, so next one. Palpatine's body being killed in Empire's End by Han Solo's blaster is such a pathetic death for the biggest villain of the original trilogy. What do you guys have to say about that one?
I think it fits him. Because for such a man who left a mark in the history, his end was pathetic. Which fits.
There's that.
Because it only
Yeah.
took a blaster to get rid of him at the end. With all his force powers, all his political influence, at the end he just died with a blaster. It's
And it took
poetic.
the sacrifice of the Jedi brand as well. So
Well, they're mostly talking about Palpatine's mortal self, not his soul self, the one that they have the most criticisms with.
okay.
Yeah, aka being killed by Han Solo's blaster. If you ask me, I think it's a fitting death, because think about it. Palpatine, he was born privileged. He had a wealthy family, wealthy life. He always was like, he was never really born poor or didn't know what suffering was or anything. And he's always had a biggest ego out of them all. And he became the ruler of the galaxy. And when in his final moments, all of that is crumbling down, and he literally is so very close to losing everything. And his death is literally just a random smuggler shooting him with a blaster. Like, that to me is like very fitting. Like the guy that was so powerful with so much wealth, so much riches, and the biggest ego dies by a common blaster. Like, yeah, that's
Shot in the back.
Yep. So.
And Han says, "What's the matter, Luke? Don't you think the time for Jedi battle etiquette is over?"
There's that too. So yeah, Palpatine's body being killed by Han Solo's blaster, like, it's a fitting end. Certainly better than Episode 9's. So yeah. So yeah. Anything else to mention on this one?
No.
Okay, now we get into the elephant in the room. It's divided in two parts, so we'll tackle each part. Let's start with the first one. So, discussing the main reason why people hate Dark Empire, and it is that it ruins Vader's sacrifice and the satisfying ending in Return of the Jedi, because they feel that the resurrection of Palpatine and Luke's fall to the dark side devalue everything Luke accomplished in Return of the Jedi and makes Vader's sacrifice completely worthless. Alright, so who wants to start here?
Okay, Vader's sacrifice wasn't done to save his son. That's the key important thing. Not to kill Palpatine or fulfill the chosen one property. No. These things are not important in the grand scheme of things. The reason why Vader killed Palpatine is to save his son. After, remembering all the things he's done, he could finally, do something for his family.
Yep. Now, there's more than just saving Luke. So, in the screen, so you guys can see there that So originally, Darth Vader's sacrifice had actually three purposes. And the first one, no one already mentioned it, that Luke Skywalker would survive and live on. Number two is that Luke Skywalker would rebuild the Jedi Order. And number three, that the rebellion would take advantage of the Empire's internal power struggle caused by the Emperor's death to create the New Republic. Those are the three purposes for why Vader sacrificed himself, both in the universe sense and the meta sense. So those are the three purposes. And if we see how the EU handled it, not only did Luke survive and live on all the way onto the Legacy era, but also the Jedi Order was rebuilt, and yeah, the New Republic was a thing, and it pretty much lived on for many years. So that did happen. Now, for those EU haters that are probably saying, oh yeah, Rise of Skywalker didn't ruin Vader's sacrifice, well, so who wants to say how those three purposes were met in Disney Star Wars?
Shall I take on this one?
Go, Luke.
Okay, so purpose number one, Luke still living on. Not quite there, because only 3 decades after Return of the Jedi's ending did Luke still remain alive. He died literally because of Force exertion in The Last Jedi. That's what killed him off. What was the second one, rebuilding the Jedi Order? Well, he lost that in the very, very early stages of trying to rebuild it, and in all the years that he remained in exile, no attempt was made to compensate for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the creation of the New Republic, I'm pretty sure that was actually destroyed when we first see Starkiller Base put to the test in Force Awakens.
It was. Several sources confirmed it.
So, Disney Star Wars fans, which of those 3 purposes did Vader's sacrifice ultimately lead to in Disney Star Wars? As in, which ones got fulfilled?
Fuck all! Fuck all. And it's only fitting that the 3 purposes were not met, and we get Palpatine returning. So, the icing on the shit cake. Wonderful. So, yeah, Vader's sacrifice completely mute in Disney Star Wars, whereas in the EU, all 3 of them were met, and by the time Palpatine had returned, like, by that point, it was not the same as in the end of Return of the Jedi. So, Luke was still alive, the Jedi Order was starting to build off, starting with Luke training Leia, of course, and the New Republic was a thing, so... By the time Palpatine returned in Rise of Skywalker...
It's like the way their mindset is, it's like, okay, so after episode 6, that's it. There's not supposed to be any more movies, that's it. Well, we had the sequel trilogy, so that kind of ruined it right there. But that's what you wanted also at the same time, which is kind of, I don't know. You can't explain these things to them.
Yeah. Indeed. And as for Luke's fall to the dark side, well, not only did we say that it is a fake one, so there is that. And also, how can that fake fall to the dark side be any worse than Luke Skywalker literally nearly committing an act of murder and literally betraying his own character?
But he regretted it. That makes it okay. Do you see? If you try to kill someone, but stop in the middle and regret your actions, there's no problems. Or what there is, you freaking sociopaths or psychopaths.
Well, there's that. Yeah, there is a problem. How is it that Darkseid Luke has no intentions of killing innocents with his own hands, while old Jake Alien Milker in Disney Star Wars actually does that or tries to? Like, what the hell? Like... Yeah, Luke's fall to the dark side, devaluing what Luke in Return of the Jedi. Yeah.
Hey, it's okay. Jake Edelmaker regretted his actions, which means, the act of pulling out a lightsaber in his nephew, that makes him human.
Yeah, just a quick thing with that. Shouldn't Luke have tried to settle that thing much, much, much sooner? After he did that, rather than waiting 3 decades?
Yeah, but I guess because Ben Solo was, I guess, not yet old enough to have a decent conversation with Luke. I don't know. So there's that. So yeah, there is that in regards to the ending of Return of the Jedi, Vader's sacrifice and Luke's fall to the dark side ruining it. No, it didn't ruin anything. Now, as for the other part of the elephant in the room, okay, so Palpatine's return in Dark Empire ruins the Chosen One prophecy, the one from the prequels, which was originally stated that the Chosen One will bring balance to the Force by having Anakin destroy Palpatine once and for all. Yet Palpatine managed to survive his death in Return of the Jedi.
Okay, let me explain why it doesn't ruin the Chosen One prophecy. Now, when Darth Bane first reorganized the Sith, it became the Rule of Two. Now, why is this important? Because Palpatine and Vader is the last line of Rule of Two. But if you look at Palpatine's actions during the prequel trilogy and the rest of the EU during the original trilogy era, he does not seem to be really interested in the Sith grand plan or anything because, well, he already accomplished his purpose. The other things are not that important. So I'm even beginning to question whether Palpatine was a legitimate Sith by the point of the original trilogy. What do you guys think about that?
Well, he definitely was a Sith, but had no more desire after killing Plagueis and getting his own apprentice to continue following the Sith lineage. He wanted to just rule the galaxy by himself.
And, like, I think someone mentioned, Palpatine had no intention of giving his power or making Vader his successor, which is already going against Darth Bane's Rule of Two, where the apprentice needs to kill the master or vice versa, and then to keep the order going. So when Vader killed Palpatine and himself, he ended the Rule of Two, because after Palpatine came back, none of that is referenced. Palpatine doesn't care about the Rule of Two, nor does he care about the Sith agenda. He just wants to keep himself and his power. So, yes, the Sith were destroyed. Because even in Legacy of the Force, it is referenced that Lumaya didn't really consider Palpatine a Sith because he went all against the Rule of Two and various things. So, at this point, Palpatine isn't really a Sith. Okay, he may be Sith in name only, but not really.
I think by the time we get to Dark Empire, he definitely relinquished the Sith teachings and stuff and just decided to rule the galaxy. By the time in the OT, he definitely was Sith and still cling on to those, but he was starting to divert from it. By the time he resurrects, that's when he just like, screw this, I just want to rule the galaxy and live.
Yeah, screw this Sith crap. I just want to rule over the galaxy. Yeah, you're right, General. So, yes, Vader did kill the Sith because Palpatine is a phony by the time of Dark Empire.
Yep, indeed. And even if we assume that Palpatine and there were other Sith that came after, with Dark Archites and stuff, even if we assume he was indeed a Sith and everything, here's the thing. The Chosen One prophecy, it says that, yes, the Chosen One will bring balance to the Force by pretty much destroying the Sith and basically just completely or nearly diminishing the dark side of the Force. Here's the thing. For the Sith to not exist, the dark side of the Force has to be completely vanquished. And that is something that will never happen. Like, you can't realistically destroy the dark side of the Force for good. It will always exist in some way. You can severely weaken it, but it will never be like fully destroyed or vanquished. There will always be Darksiders or people adept to the dark side of the Force. And those that want to continue the Sith lineage, they could do it as long as they're adept to the dark side. So the Chosen One prophecy, I'd argue it does not mean truly like completely vanquishing like the dark side of the Force or like destroying the Sith entirely. Yes, you can definitely destroy the Sith entirely in episode 6, but as long as the dark side exists, there will always be some sort of a dark side force-sensitive group that goes against the Jedi, and the sworn enemy of the Jedi are the Sith. So those would come back. So with that said, the prophecy does not really say like In fact, we don't even know the specific details of how the prophecy says that, oh, this is what the Chosen One would do, and this is what will happen later on, or this is what, like, it's very vague. We've never gotten a specific details other than just Chosen One is going to arrive, is going to be very strong in the Force, and is going to be born from the Force, and is going to pretty much destroy the Sith, bring balance to the Force. That's all it says. There's way more of the Chosen One prophecy than just that. Hell, even in episode 3, Yoda even says that the prophecy could have been misread. Or maybe it had some stuff that were not really like true. Or like the prophecies, it's so vague. Like we don't have those specific details. We don't know how it's really gonna be.
In Revenge of the Sith, no, was it that prophecy never said it will be a Jedi. It was just say a chosen one. So even that detail.
Exactly. So the prophecy, for all we know, maybe it said that a light side force sensitive will destroy the Sith or a Jedi or a Sith, but because the details are not there, we cannot say that. So basically, how it went Return of the Jedi, Anakin did bring balance to the Force by destroying the current Sith lineage, Palpatine and Vader. So as far as we know, the prophecy only meant for Anakin to destroy the Sith lineage in Return of the Jedi. That was what we meant. It never really said the Sith will not exist after Episode 6, and it didn't say that the dark side will be fully vanquished. So those saying that, oh, Darth Sidious should stay dead for good, or there shouldn't be any Sith after Episode 6, like, that's delusional. Because if you truly want that, the dark side of the Force has to be truly vanquished completely. And that's something that will never happen. It will always exist in some way. As George Lucas has said, the dark side is like a disease, like a cancer of sorts. And it is a tempting, kind of like a drug of sorts. It will always be there in some way. So there is no way in hell that you'll get the Sith fully vanquished later on. So there's that. Now here's the thing. While we may argue the Dark Empire does not ruin the Chosen One prophecy, the other side of the coin, Rise of Skywalker, that is a whole other story. Okay.
Yeah, Palpatine is back, and he is part of the Sith Eternal, whatever that is.
So there is that. And not only that, but okay. So when Anakin sacrificed himself in Episode 6, there were no true Sith Lords for a good amount of time until the closest being with Darth Caedus in Legacy of the Force. There were no true Sith Lords. There was no influx of Dark Side of the Force. The Dark Side of the Force was, at its strongest, was in the original trilogy, with Palpatine ruling the entire galaxy with an iron fist. When he died, along with Darth Vader, that dark side was absolutely nearly destroyed completely. Like, the light side truly dominated for many years. So while there were a few Dark Jedi and some other threats looming around in the post-Return of the Jedi era in the EU, the dark side never truly got its foothold. It truly never got back to the same level as it was in the OT. So, or hell, even the Old Republic era dies. Like, it never got into that point again. I don't even think with Darth Krayt it even got to that point, because you said though, and even the Sith of Force didn't consider Krayt.
Old Sith holocrons such as Darth Bane, Nihilus, and I don't remember which was the other one.
Undeadu, I believe.
What?
Undeadu.
They're basically, the holocron is basically mocking Krayt, calling him, "You're nothing but an imposter, and you basically ignore our teachings." So yeah, Krayt wasn't considered a real Sith, and Jacen Solo didn't do anything much to leave an impact. And Lumaya was dead, so yeah, the Sith there wasn't really any true Sith after Palpatine birth's death and Darth Vader's demise.
And not to mention, the dark side of the Force never truly got its foothold in the galaxy ever again. Whereas in Disney's Star Wars? Holy shit. Okay, so not only did freaking Snoke and Kylo Ren arrive with a humongous Starkiller base and destroyed plenty of planets and shit. And not only was the Jedi Order non-existent, so that means that there were barely any Force sensitives alive after Episode 6, other than, I guess, Ahsoka, whatever the hell she is. So there was no Jedi Order. and dark side Force sensitives, there were plenty, and they were already ruling the galaxy, especially by the end of The Last Jedi. So, yeah, the dark side is at its strongest. It never really was balanced after Episode 6 in Disney Star Wars, and with Palpatine Return of the Sith Eternals, even more unbalanced in favor of the dark side. Like,
Yeah, and who knows all those sick cultists like chanting whether their force senses was or not.
So yeah, like the Anakin never really brought balance to the Force at the end of Return of the Jedi in the Disney Star Wars era. Maybe he did, but it lasted for a very short time. Well, in the EU, it lasted for for a good amount of time until at least, I guess, maybe when Abeloth arrived in Fate of the Jedi. But in Disney Star Wars, like there was no light side force sensitive group to go against this dark side. Dark side was barely lost much, to be honest. So yeah, Anakin didn't bring balance to the Force in Disney Star Wars, not nearly, and even if he did, it did not even last that long. So yeah,
Anakin is like, Ray, bring back balance to the force like I once am. You done shit!
yeah, you didn't do shit. Like, Palpatine just returned, which only made Darkseid even stronger, and there was already plenty of Darkseid of the Force in the galaxy at the time. So, yeah, no balance of the Force in this Star Wars. Whereas in the EU, there was. So yeah, Chosen One prophecy was not contradicted or ruined in Dark Empire as it was in Disney Star Wars. So yeah, anything else to mention on this one, guys?
I guess not.
Okay, so I guess now we get into the conclusions. Unless you guys got any other small criticisms you got for Dark Empire, I doubt there's any more. So we get to the conclusion now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Luke, go ahead.
Okay, so is this thoughts on the story as a whole, or the criticisms that have been leveled against it?
Criticisms.
Honestly, I think
Go.
I personally think that a lot of the criticism leveled against Dark Empire is really kind of nitpicking, and especially with Rise of Skywalker now within the Star Wars fold. Yeah, this story probably isn't looking too bad these days.
Yeah. Anything else?
For me, it's one of those stories where, and I'm bringing this up because I just want to bring in my own piece regarding one of the big criticisms, that being Palpatine's return. To me, it's one of those things that the EU didn't necessarily need, but I really like what Dark Empire did with it. And at least we got an explanation as to how he came back, looking at you, Rise of Skywalker.
Well, if you get technical, Luke, with Dark Empire, there actually was a good reason for bringing back Palpatine. Not only did the writer actually want something else, but also at the time, the Star Wars timeline was not really that well fleshed out. So for anything, doing something like Palpatine's resurrection was actually not only a solid idea, but definitely one that brought potential, and it certainly did. Whereas in Disney Star Wars, there was absolutely zero reason to bring Palpatine back. Like, zero. No good reason.
Dark Empire came out in December 1991. Now, December 1991 and December 2019 is a different year because in December 1991, Star Wars wasn't as popular as in December 2019. Now, why is this important? Do you really need Palpatine to come back in Rise of Skywalker to attract the attention of the audience?
No.
In 2019?
No.
In 1991, there wasn't much. The EU timeline wasn't established, And the last thing people might actually remember was the Ewok movies, which wasn't a really good example of what Star Wars universe could be.
Yeah, taking the landscape of how the Star Wars franchise was is definitely an important one when it comes to the concept and behind the scenes for both Dark Empire and Rise of Skywalker. Dark Empire, there certainly was a good amount of potential from doing Palpatine's resurrection, and not only that, but it worked out. So definitely can work. So, and not to mention, Palpatine was the main villain established back then for Star Wars. So, and he was already a fan favorite. So the fact that he could actually cheat death and bring back certainly is an enticing one. Whereas with Disney Star Wars, no reason whatsoever. They should have just stayed with Snoke. So there's that. So with that said, Luke, you can finish your conclusion.
Well, I uh, I genuinely just enjoy what Dark Empire brought to the table, and again, as I said, I don't think these criticisms really have that much weight.
Anything else?
I would say, if you haven't done so already, give these stories another chance with a more open mind.
Indeed. So, okay. So, Doan, you want to go next?
Well, I think it was a good beginning for the modern day expanded universe. Well, though there are many detractors, even from EU writers and EU fans, I think it's pretty good. And the hate is not justified. And that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay. The Django?
Yeah, with this being the first EU comic since the end of the Star Wars Marvel run back in the 90s when it came out, like it was the most unique and different of the bunch and added so much to the EU to like decades later becoming like just a staple in Star Wars and the fans just loving the EU and wanting more. So that was the beginning right then and there. Just a really strong beginning from there. And Dark Empire just really brought a lot to the table. And the first two volumes are still just like legendary stories to me. Third one, not so much. But I do think the criticisms are so weak and stupid now. And, you know, in comparison with now Rise of the Skywalker in the mix, where it copies a lot of elements from Dark Empire, but fails so completely in every single way that it just doesn't even resemble Dark Empire. Just borrows some concepts, but just, you know, the execution is horrible. And I will say that this is just a high recommendation. And if you didn't like Rise of Skywalker, you hated that, then check out Dark Empire, and you will enjoy it 10,000 times more than Rise of Skywalker in every single way. It's just so much better, and you'll have a much better time. And hey, maybe you can get into the EU from that point on and just want more stories from there.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. So as for me, well, yeah, this is Dark Empire is definitely a great story. Definitely read the 3 volumes: Dark Empire 1, Dark Empire 2, and Empire Ascend. Well, Empire Ascend may be the weaker one of the 3. It's still definitely worth reading, especially if you want to get the true ultimate demise of Palpatine. But even those 3 are definitely better than what we got with Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker is just a shameless, shitty ripoff of Dark Empire that if you saw that movie and you hated it, then just like literally just go and read Dark Empire. It's available in the Marvel Legends Epic Collections, New Republic Volume 5, so give that a read. It's definitely worth it. And if not, just read it online if you want to, or get the original Dark Horse comics, so those will cost a bit more money. So either way you want, read Dark Empire trilogy. It is worth it. And these criticisms to Dark Empire, don't listen to them. They're literally just purely nitpicks and just biased criticisms at worst. Like they're just shitty criticisms from those EU haters slash Disney Star Wars fanboys that just want to find any sort of reason to hate on Dark Empire and at times glorify Disney Star Wars. Though, thanks to Rise Skywalker, well, they no longer have any arguments to shit on Dark Empire. Now they're just complete another bullshit. So, there is that. So, yeah, give Dark Empire a chance, read it, and yeah. So there is that. And with that, well, Dark Empire, I tip my hat to you for the 30th anniversary that you got in this year. So with that, well, we finished defending Dark Empire, and we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars podcast. Bye bye.
You guys.
May the force be with you guys.